Good morning, good morning. It's a late morning, well, actually afternoon, on March 4th, 2021. Today's going to be a review of history, of what we just did, part 6, and we were reviewing between 1861 to 1884, and there's some important facts outside of some of the trivia things, like we had the ability of Thomas Edison actually was able to establish electricity. We had many things happening. The telegraph advancing to that of the telephone. Many trivial things, but the important thing of my focus is mainly on that of the political establishment of America and the truth of the founding principles of America, not so much the trivia, but just some of those things to mention up in relation to those. Some of the important things that took place in the timeline that we didn't review. Some people feel is important. So I wanted to just go and touch on some of those things. Real quick, just trying to clean up here so we can move forward. Okay, because understand I do these things spontaneously. When I get time, I pop on here, kind of get a line up to what I want to talk about, and then what I've been thinking about after the last video, and then we go from there forward into what we're looking at. So today what we want to review is some important facts I felt that needed to be included in this history span of time that we had. As I said, we can see here that we left off with our last video right there. What's the heading up top? Still views. That was our last video, and what we're going to touch on today is oops, this is out of place here. We want to touch on the labor unions of the Knights Labor Union that was founded by the Ku Klux Klan, and as well a very important part which a friend of mine, Anthony, online brought up that I was kind of like shocked to myself that I even forgot about this. But one of the important parts during this establishment was the we touched on the thing about the Knights Labor Union. I guess we'll pick up there. This was during the era of where we had in because actually the Knights Labor Union was founded in 1869, and this was formed by the Ku Klux Klan's Democratic Party's Ku Klux Klan. And at the end of this video too, we're gonna look over some of USA Today, which has declined my offer for interview and review with the historians. I've emailed, I've tried to reach out. If anybody wants to harass them, I would love to sit down and do an interview with the paper brain historians of the USA, which at the end of this you're going to see. We're going to debunk the USA. Where is it at? Oh gosh, I'm going to have to pull it back up now. I just accidentally closed the link we needed. I gotta hope I can re-find it. Okay, here we go. I did re-find it. This is a story by USA Today, of which we are going to debunk. It says, fact check, Democratic Party did not found the KKK, did not start the Civil War. And I like to review these articles and then debunk them. Reason being that not only is this article important to the fact of getting debunked, really, by the lies they tell, but it also goes into, they conclude their story, which we're going to review this later at the end of the brief history review, about how there's a party switch. And we're going to debunk all the lies of the Democrats currently today that are confounded in the American Posterity with the facts of truth. What do you know about that? The truth. Not my opinion, the facts of truth that are undeniable. So, but first we want to review something here about the American Federation of Labor Unions. This is something I wanted to touch on here because it references to that of terrorism. And the thing that we were talking about when we referenced about the Knights of Labor Union, which I spoke about briefly in the last video, of which I just want to recap on, was that the Democratic Party's Ku Klux Klan were the founders of the Knights Labor Union. That's why it was called the Knights Labor Union. It was related to that of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. And what they would do, they wouldn't wear their hoods or what have you, but they would send out their Klan members to terrorize that of the factory industrial. Like we had the Industrial Revolution boom going on at that time, and to disenfranchise to now free blacks from getting all the industrial jobs because they were highly sought after by the factory workers and stuff in the industrial boom because they had good work ethics, and they were very much trying to prove themselves as good citizens. And the worth ethics of them and their morals and values were very sound for business. So many of the now free blacks were sought after in the industrial boom for labor, as well as the Republicans, who were again the working class too. And majority of the industrial boom was being led by that of Republican-minded people who were in pursuit of their happiness in this great free capitalist nation at the time, and they were the main founders of it. The Democrats, for the majority, still held on to their Tory principles of self-proclaimed elitist scumbags who thought they were better than everybody, and they were lazy and not very highly sought after because they didn't have very good work ethics. They were kind of just lazy, self-proclaimed elitist people who felt everybody owed them something. It's kind of similar today, still what they are this day. But the labor union had played a big role in disenfranchising the black Americans. As we progress forward now in time after this short review, we're going to realize just how evil the Democratic Party is and how evil they have been afflicting society and the American values and principles for the last 160 years as we progress forward. The Democrats have not changed, and this is a fact that no one wants to face, but it's a reality of the truth, and we care about the truth. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Now, one of the important things I didn't mention was the ABA and that of the bar, the legal system of the bar. The legal, like the bar, of the legal system bar of the Bar Association, of what American attorneys are required. Now, most people don't even consider these things, but in truth, this was an important fact of history I can't forget because it was also founded. The bar was brought in from Great Britain. A lot of lawyers today want to lie and deny these facts of history. The bar stands for the British Administration of Rules, and it was actually founded. And then also, too, this is important because it shows that all the way from the very beginning, as I've been saying, was that the Democratic Party was founded by the British Tory, the loyalists of Great Britain, who were always the enemies within. As we talked, if you reviewed the history up to this point of the videos I made, you realize that in the founding time, we fought them in the back door in the Civil War while we were fighting Britain in the Revolutionary War. After the Revolutionary War, we had near 60 years of civil rivalry going on with the Tories in relation to tar and feathering them and hanging them and them hanging Republicans and what have you, right up until the Tories formed the Democratic Party in 1828. And they did that as a means of trying to hide and mask who they really were. But to show that the association of the Tory and the Democrats did not fade, we're going to go into looking at how, even after the Civil War, and in the progression of America's progress in trying to further its development in the true American founding principles, how the Democrats consistently caused division, consistently interfered with the progress of the establishment of the government and the vision of our founders, and kept trying to impede and instill that of foreign ideology and dictatorship kind of methods of control. And they slowly, methodically set up this system to be able to slowly and methodically take control from the American people. As the American people would progress in time, and we see they would become weaker, more coward-like, and ignorant of the truth of their history, which, as we've been warned many and we've known throughout history, has been a great statement made throughout, is that history is important. Those who fail to remember it, repeat it. And we are about repeating it right now in the current times that we're facing right now. We're on a teetering line of a civil war, and mainly again being led by that of who caused the last civil war, the Democrats. Of which, as we progress forward, we're going to have an detailed review at the end of this quick review of the ABA here. This is the guy who founded it. Now, this is an important thing because I have a chronicle history of things, and I remember this very clearly on how the puzzle pieces all come together. And when I say the puzzle pieces, I say that the long established, what you got to understand today is, like, you see the Democrats are allied still with Great Britain, and they're still allied with the totalitarian Islamic Muslims. Now, when you're looking at Great Britain, you're talking a history of establishment that dates back close to 5,000 years. When you're looking at the totalitarian Islamic Muslims, of the socialist states of Islam, you're talking an ideology that dates back 1,400 years. America, we're 244 years new in this world. We're one of the newest nations to evolve in humanity. The Democrats have been associated with these long-established things of what we talked about, democracies and republic before, and how in Federalist Letter Paper number 10, our founders make it very clear America is not a democracy, had no intention of being a democracy. We are a republic, but the Democrats today like to confound that meaning and try to impress upon the American people to believe they're a democracy, when in truth we're not. We're not a democracy, we're a republic. But back to this guy. This guy here, Simon Edmund Baldwin, was the founder of the bar. And he brought it to America, and he was a Democrat. He was a strong, staunch Democrat. And the reason I bring this up is because you got to understand, not only with this is all during the time of the Knights Labor Union with the Ku Klux Klan. This was kind of brought in out of Great Britain. And the Baldwin family history plays an important role in the Democratic Party. This right here, I'll include links to this. This is the Baldwin genealogy. And this is an old book that's in the Federal Archives that dates back a long time, and it has an incredible genealogy history of who the Baldwins are. And the reason why I find this is important, because I can remember as a young kid when I was trying to research these things on my own, and I came across the rise of the Knights Labor Union and then the bar. It was like, because when I look back at history and you see like with Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, John Adams, and what have you, they referred to them as attorneys. But in truth, this is a propagated lie. Again, there was no attorney bar back then during that time. The attorney bar didn't happen until, like we show here, it didn't happen until 1878. So, I mean, it's a lie to assume that you can say that, and the reason why they do this is they want to associate attorneys to being that of the majority of what was founding to be the government, because today in our current administrations of both Republican and Democrats, our government is flooded with nothing but ass-sitter, worthless, paper-brain, educated, idiot attorneys. Okay, and in truth, there was actually a constitutional amendment and part of the Constitution that was removed that barred attorneys from even holding political office. But that got removed, and a lot of people are in dispute of it. And the reason being because, like I said, most people knew that attorneys, in truth, of the bar from the British administration of rules of Great Britain, were dictatorial Tories, is what they really were. And why I bring up Baldwin. Baldwin played the Baldwin family from the 1500s forward played an important part of a role in American, not so much the United States of America, but when America was founded by Great Britain and under Britain's control, because they were a well-established, long name known in the Tory families of the British elitist Tories, who managed many of the southern slave states and the large slave plantations for King George III, or even up to his time. And another one here, like I say, when we have the Baldwin history, this is William Warren Baldwin. And on here, we want to do a search for it right here. I want to find it if I can. Right here was a story of which right here Jarvis led an orange Tory mob which tore a fence apart and began beating the defenseless crowd. Jarvis led a charge on a wagon on which Baldwin and Francis Hicks were perched, shouting down with them. The meeting broke up, but not before a 19-year-old member of the Children of Peace, David Leppert, was struck in the temple with a rock with such force that he was knocked from his wagon. He was to die soon after. But this is just to show you the Baldwin family were that of British descent of the Tories in America. They fled to Canada. A part of them did. And then a large part of them returned. They played an important role in the Civil War as well, and also with the picking of the Democrat Jefferson Davis, who would become the president. The Baldwin family played an important role in slavery and the cause of the Civil War, and in keeping to... Now, this family, the reason why I say it's important, because like I'm always saying, that the front puppets right now we see, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, such as these people, that these are people totally aware of what I'm talking about. Trust me, especially Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. They are totally 100% aware of the secret society of the Ku Klux Klan and the Tory establishment of the Democratic Party and its real intent that's underlying that no one seems to recall right now, but history does lay out a clear fact of it. And as we progress forward, you're going to understand how this plan evolves and continues to evolve, and their goal and their intent to overthrow America continues to progress. And right now, they're very close to being able to accomplish their goal. So we need to pay very close attention to this. But my point was that, as well, Stanley Baldwin. This was another fella, which I wanted to touch on here. I'm just looking for something here real quick. Oh, it's not going to be in there, but okay. Well, this guy too, as well, was another one of the founders of the bar. Okay, and they brought this in. It happened with a meeting in New York City between what was Democrats. Now, after the Civil War, you had what was known as the Northern Democrats. They were moving in. Mainly, they started moving north because of the Knights Labor Union. They had to focus on that of industrialization developing in the large factories growing in New York City, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, even Chicago, Illinois, and what have you. So the southern area Tories, Democrats, started to move northward using their Ku Klux Klan and new-founded Knights labor unions to terrorize that of the northern Republicans who were developing these large industrial sects, to force them into hiring that of Klan members or union members, as they call them. Most of the union members of the Ku Klux Klan would be called union leaders. And you'll hear most members of the Klan will refer to that of heads of state in the Ku Klux Klan as leader. And this is something that's written in their Claron, the Ku Klux Klan's Claron. I don't have that up. I can pull that up for you real quick so you understand what I'm talking about. Right here is the Claron. So everybody can get a look at it. Here's the Ku Klux Klan Claron, so you understand. Now the rules, if you read this book, you'll understand the rules of what I'm saying and about how people are addressed and what have you. And the tie-in together between the Ku Klux Klan and the Knights Labor Union, and then that of the ABA and the Bar Association that develops in America, starting with Stanley Baldwin and the Baldwin families who brought the bar here. And the reason why they brought it here was the same thing as in reference to hijack the legal system. Now, today we know that in order to practice law as an attorney, which in truth is not the truth, you're being told this, anybody can consent to anybody to represent them in a court of law. You don't have to be a bar-certified attorney to defend somebody in court. If that person consents to somebody defending them, no court can legally deny that person a right to defend them. But today, by the rules, the way they established it with this fraternary, and that was the whole goal of it, you see, because we used to have a separate system where attorneys and judges were separate. Judges were totally impartial. And this was the founders' intent, was to keep them impartial. As we say, the separations of branches of government, right? The legislative, the judicial, and the executive, right? We were to have these things separated, okay? And the reason of impartialism with a judge is so he has no association politically or any kind of affiliation or fraternary with anybody, so that he can be totally impartial. But you see, with the bar, that breaches that, and that defies that of what our founders wanted. Because the bar now brings into a fraternary that of attorneys through the ABA rules and that of the judges through the canon rules of the bar. So now they become a fraternary among the same organization, the bar. And they're all bar brothers and members as a fraternary in the bar. And they defend each other. Many now, in order to be a judge or an attorney, you're told you have to be a bar certified attorney, you have to go through law school, you have to do this, you have to do that. And they confounded the law to what we see today. The law is so confounded across this country. But in truth, here's the thing about what our founders wanted. Ignorance of the law was no excuse. And the law was supposed to be written in such a way that any reasonable, sound person of sound mind and reasonable judgment should be able to read the law, decipher its meaning and fully understand it. If the law in the founding times, if the law in which this was claimed in the founding times, if the law was written in such a way that the average common sense person could not read it and understand it, then the law itself was in contempt of its own purpose and it had to be redrafted. It was, and that's the truth even with the law today. The law is really not a complex thing. It's just a confoundment. There's so many, and the reason of it is because of what the Democrats' goal were with the bar and the Tory. And now I just want to have, like I say, I mention these people because of the association right here, like with the Orange Tory mob. I just wanted to tie together the understanding of the Tory and how they progressed to be who they are as the Democrats in 1928, and then how they caused the Civil War of 1861, and then how after the Civil War, we can still see by Tory association with the Democrats and their loyalty still to that of the democratic democracies around the world who are the known and declared enemies of the United States, how they still fraternize with these people and progress forward in infiltrating our nation with that of foreign ideology and administrative governing authorities and powers by hijacking our legal system with the ABA and the canons of the Bar Association, which I don't care what any attorney says, there's facts within facts that prove, along as with the Baldwin family and the establishment of the bar in New York City, with the Tory who came in out of Canada, and these things were debated among the now Northern Democrats for intently several months, and there's records of letters and everything that have been founded that exist within the federal archives that verify everything I'm saying a fact, unquestionable fact, that this was a collaboration of an idea between the Tory out of Canada who had fled Canada and had been residing under the Royal Crown of Canada, working with that of the now Democratic Tory here in the United States, and they kept the whole collaboration between the letters of what exists between these people is a collaboration of how did they defeat the United States of America? How do they collapse the United States of America? How do they get control of this now free, independent nation that is dominating the world? Because the world now, we had so many immigrants from all around the world fleeing all these dictatorial nations of democratic democracies around the world wanting to come to America. We had people flowing in from Italy, Germany, Greece, Spain, Europe, everywhere. They were coming to America because they wanted to get away from the totalitarian dictatorship of all these foreign nations. And America became a great threat to the world's order of world control and authority, of which our founders knew, of what would involve world history, of how those world dictators and totalitarian regimes, of what still exist today and are still in control this very day, keep their control as back then from ancient methods that they've been practicing for centuries, of which now are still in practice, and it's done in such a slow, methodic process, as it has been being done now for thousands of years, that people forget generation to generation, and they do these things in decade, generational, and century time frames. And they're very patient because the end goal, of course, is world domination and enslavement of all humanity. Their goal passes on generation to generation. It's indoctrinated within those of the people behind it, and they maintain this order as they go forward, what should be self-evident when you look at like the royal family of Arabia and realize they've been in power now doing the same thing under the same family name for 7,000 years. You can look at the what you would call the dynasties of China, which have been around with the same family names for 9,000 years. You can look even at the Islamic Muslims right now, and you can see with the royal families related to that of Iran and the Islamic states of, like I said, Arabia and Egypt and what have you. These names have been around for several thousand, 7,000 years, not even several, more than several, 7,000 years, 7,000 years. Some of these dynasty sects of the monarchies that exist within these foreign nations right now, these totalitarian regimes. But my point here is to put to the point of how the Democrats, through the Tories, who they are, and they're, if you understand the Tory, which you should read up on the Tory British political party, and understand it's associated now with the bar and how foreign interest was able to take control of our justice system. And how, like in the beginning now, they couldn't impose the rules as what they do today. But today we're seeing the very effect of this, like with recently the election we have with the election fraud and everything going on. we're realizing how the fraternary now defends that of its attorneys. And we're also recognizing, like, those attorneys who are going against the grain now of the bar in its intent of the Democratic Party's establishment to overthrow our nation from within, those attorneys are being threatened now with that having their legal license suspended. And this is what I'm saying. As well, we see this trend with the Democrats, who are the ones who imposed all kind of departments of professional regulations through the bar and legislative establishment through the bar in the United States, and where they started regulating and control that of free trade within independent business owners, of which now today, of which I witnessed back in 2000, many people of the trades, construction trades, remember the occupational license being suspended and considered outlaw by the so-called Supreme Court of which is now under clear control of the Tory British bar. And these people took the licensing away of many millions of tradespeople across the nation, causing many businesses to collapse. This is what was the true cause of the bubble pop in 2000, in the real estate bubble pop, was that they shut down the construction trades by taking their license away. And then with the loss of license, many of them not having proof to be able to verify their business license, they would lose their business insurance, and which then would subject them to great fines under this new department of the Department of Professional Regulations and Licensing of the construction trades, established by many of the states under the legislation of the bar of these no-good dictators who are now controlling our legal system. And many millions of Americans lost their homes, their families broke up. I had friends I knew, sons committed suicide over the hardship their family was facing, and then the father committed suicide. Friends I knew who killed themselves. Just a horrible, the thousands of that I seen affected in Florida by these changes that no one even acknowledged or even cared to acknowledge back in the time when it took place. And it's still happening to this very day, because they have turned it now into a Gestapo operation of what is operating right now. And we see that Gestapo operating under the Democratic administration right now in its attempt to enforce that of its Gestapo imposition of that of right now statutes on this COVID-19, and they're threatening to take away business licenses of people and suspend the law licenses of attorneys who are acting out against it. And most don't know that those are the medical practice, because the news is complicit in all this. It's clear that our news now is controlled by that of foreign interests. The hundreds of billions of dollars that have been flowing to foreign nations of the oil-rich Islamic totalitarian regimes is being now used to buy the media companies in America, and they have such ownership within all these networks within America that they can control the narrative of what these American media companies and news outlets will actually do and report and say, and what they won't. So we're not seeing the effects of those. We remember, like, the frontline doctors and what have you, and other doctors and pharmacists who came forward about issues about the no flu this season and what have you. And then these people quickly fade. Their YouTube channels are stripped down. Their Facebook pages are stripped down. And now they're under threat from their own state, as I said, by using the ABA rules and that of the Department of Federal Regulations and Licensing through all these members of the Bar Association, through the Democratic establishment of their Tory presence here in America. They are now threatening those medical doctors to suspend and take their medical license away from them. So this is what you have to understand on how this is how they're able to silence the truth. And the methods of these people have been long-standing in America with their terroristic, the last 160 years since the Civil War, the Democratic Party has been nothing but an inward enemy within of a terrorist organization that has been terrorizing the American society and its people for the last 160 years, and still continues to do it to this very day. It's an enemy that needs to be removed from the United States, and as soon as possible, because right now, in all honesty and truth, the Republic of the United States is at great threat of falling right now. But in truth, it's not. To be honest with you, the true Republic of the true American patriot is gaining their bearings and their understanding and their own ignorance in relation to American history and truth and the founding principles of our nation. It's taking a little bit of time to get everyone on board with that, but eventually they will rise up and they will take back our nation. Most people might not be aware that right now, according to the FBI and the CIA, they're giving warning right now to Congress again of a potential seize on the White House. I didn't have that up. Let me just put this here. See if I can find this. It was a warning, so everyone's aware of this. Right here on the 3rd, here we go. I want to bring this up so people can see it. Okay, good thing I didn't wipe it out. Okay. go here. You got these news outlets. Capitol Police warn of possible militia plot to breach Congress. This was 8 hours ago, right here. And as far as I know, I don't know of anything real with this. But I do know one thing. The more they stack the National Guard, the more, if such a thing was to happen, the better. Because they don't realize that, I got news for them, the majority of the military, the National Guard, and most LEO authorities are with the people in taking back control of the nation when it does happen. But I don't think it's going to happen I don't know of anything happening March 4th or today with a siege at the Capitol. But this is what Congress right now is in fear of, why they want more National Guard. They're so afraid these Democrats, these treasonous scumbags within, and what they've been doing and attempted to. But believe me, eventually it is coming. The American people have to, because right now we're a banana republic. They stole the last election. The corruption is widespread between Democrats and Republicans. Our entire administration of government, and trust it right now, is a worthless entity that is nothing but a burden on the people and a constant breach upon our peace and tranquility. They have lost total sight of their purpose and intent of what we consented to them to be from the Constitution, and they're acting way outside the Constitution right now in a disgraceful manner that is making us all, as the American people, look like fools in front of the world. But that's the state we're dealing with right now. So again, like I say, I just wanted to touch on some of those important. One of the most important things was about the Knights Labor Union of the Ku Klux Klan dominating the Industrial Revolution and using terroristic tactics by the Ku Klux Klan to threaten that of Republican businessmen to hire their own, of which, like we touched on this in the last, that upon the Knights Labor Union getting their own hired into it, then they would fire that of the black Americans, now free black Americans, and disenfranchise them from the Industrial Revolution, and hire that of their own lazy, worthless Democrats, of their populace of the Ku Klux Klan and the Democratic establishment of population in the United States. And then we would start to see the results of this in a slow decline of a depression that would establish, because Democrats just are not productive people in working, which eventually caused the farming industrial area and as well the Industrial Revolution of the factory, and as we know by 1929, to collapse. Okay, because of this terroristic acts and that of the Democrats. And with them, they really didn't care. Their goal is to destroy this country. It's been their goal since the Revolutionary War, and they're still obviously on board with that. This is what they want. They want a communist, totalitarian, democratic democracy state. They don't want a free constitutional republic. They don't like the idea of America. They never liked the idea. The people in government right now in the Democratic Party are self-proclaimed elitist scumbag dictators, as is clear. Socialist communism is what they're seeking to establish here, and the criminal intent of these people has been long. There's a long train of abuses throughout our last 160 years, right up to the current day. As we know, it's amazing when you look at Hillary Clinton and how many members of her cabinet and of the Democratic Party have committed suicide during hers and Barack Obama's train of incredible abuses in this nation, and aiding and assisting the enemies of the United States in relation to that have long and established declared enemies of the totalitarian Islamic Muslims. But, this goes on. It's just amazing that how they kill their own people. You wonder why, like Donald Trump mentioned in his last CPAC thing about how loyal the Democrats are. Well, you can understand they'll suicide you. They'll kill you if you're not. So they're like the Muslims, you understand? And we did a little skit on that, of the thing where I talked about the Muslims with apostasy and what have you. Once you're in, you're in. They're like the mob. That's the way it works. This is criminal organization. These are organized crime outlets that are running our country right now. And though we're ignorant to want to face that reality, that's the reality we're facing. But I just wanted to touch base on this. I'm going to put links into this so people can understand the association of that of the Tory Democrats and how they hijacked America with the bar, and how the bar administration right now is a fraternity between judges and attorneys. So we're no longer independent. We don't have that independent facet anymore of a totally impartial judge, because he is a member now and has been a member since 1887 with the bar, and that membership has been being cemented, and the indoctrination of it within the law schools. And speaking with attorneys, I'm sorry, when you look at attorneys, like you listen to some of these attorneys, you realize take for instance Hank Johnson. Hank Johnson. You go look at the Hank Johnson worried concerns about Guam, and then realize this is a guy who passed the bar and who is a bar associated attorney and was a federal appeals judge, as well, and now is still a congressman in the Democratic Party. Oh my God! When you realize the idiocy here you realize the indoctrination and the truth of it. They target such as Hank Johnson because of what they call affirmative action, meaning that, you know, they can give him a bar license, and no matter how many times he fails the bar, which was my understanding, he failed like 4 times, and no one actually has any proof of evidence he even actually ever passed. They just gave it to him under affirmative action, and really because he was a perfect candidate for corrupt cases in the federal appeals. That's why they appointed him as a federal appeal judge. This guy, they could get him to do anything, and that's what I'm saying. Our nation, our justice system, our whole entire government has become a mockery, a joke, a disgrace to us, the American people. And it's at a point right now where the world is looking at us all like we're fools. And pretty much we are, because we're allowing this to continue on with this monkey operation of a kangaroo government right now, even with this idiot Joe Biden. I can't believe Joe Biden is the president. This guy, when I was a kid, shining shoes, was known as the transit pedophile. And he's also well known, an established member with Robert Byrd and Lyndon B. Johnson, who are both Ku Klux Klan members. And it's very well known and believed that Joe Biden himself was a very involved Ku Klux Klan member out of Pennsylvania. And we consider that because the things he said at not Lyndon B. Johnson, at Robert Byrd's inauguration, when he was, not inaugural, his funeral, his knowledge, what do they call it, when they were doing, recognizing Robert Byrd, the Ku Klux Klan member, and Biden had referred to him as his leader, and he said that he always referred to him as leader. And this was the thing, as I said, when you read into the Quran of the Ku Klux Klan, you get the understanding of why Klan members refer to that of state leaders as state Klan leaders as leader. They don't call them, you know, they have to call them by certain, there's rules, fraternary rules and what have you, the way it works. But I just want to touch on those things. So as now, like I said, so we're going to move forward now. We're going to go into here about something that's off from the history. I just want to touch those bases real quick. It was mentioned by a friend of mine, Anthony, and who's a friend of mine and reviewed this. He brought up about the issue ABA in the canons and in the Bar Association with the attorneys, of which most people aren't aware. These associations, just like many of the Department of Professional Regulations, licensing control, and what have you, are all developed by the Democrats in an attempt to be able to seize control over that of free people acting within their free right, of which contracts in this nation are not to be impeded by the government, and they're supposed to be able to, we're all supposed to be able to freely contract as a free trade capitalist nation. But, you know, little by little, ignorance of the American posterity and the total decay of our education system in this country has led people to be so ignorant they don't realize how slowly and methodically the Democrats are slowly taking control of everything and using the powers, and even with Donald Trump right now, when you see him at CPAC, the face of defeat on the man is clear. And, you know, Donald Trump, prior to this, bragged about how he was able to pay near zero taxes because he knows the law and he's able to use the law. And in truth, though the Democrats criminally did what they did with this election, they were able to legally, by the law, do what they did by manipulating things in such a way they couldn't be caught. Or he didn't have the time to be able to prove. And then, like I say, right now, this plays an important role, because the thing of what you got to realize is that the bar, with the attorneys, you know, and what's going on right now with the founding of the bar, and have these judges are members of the Democratic bar, the Tory bar, the British administration of rules. And they are now placed so many of their own people within the authoritative positions of our courts. We have no justice in America no more. There is really no law here anymore. We're a banana republic, and people don't want to face us. There's literally, because the written Constitution and the written Declaration of Independence and the written law is only as strong as that of the people who are about to abide by it. And when the government itself becomes so complicit in corruption and treason that it no longer abides by any rules of law whatsoever, and has nothing whatsoever to hold them accountable, but that of when the people decide to rise up themselves and themselves hold them accountable, because these people control every aspect. They're using our own military assets. They're attempting to use our own military assets against us, the American people, to prevent us from being able to take control back of our republic and reestablish ourselves as a true republic under that of the true constitutional law of this nation. They're using our own military assets to try and stop us from doing that. That's how far it has gone and how much power they have grasped. And the courts are involved in this, all the way from, like I say, the federal presidential level, right down to the state governor's level, down to the county commission level, down to the local town mayor level, down to even the local town commissions, So, I mean, the corruption is widespread, and it's spread out through, like I say, county courts, district courts, state courts, federal courts. The judges are stacked against the American people because they're all under control of the fraternity of the bar. And we have allowed these things, like I say, when you think in 1887 these things started, or 1878 where it started. So it's only 100 years after we founded this nation that they're able to now start progressively hijacking that of our legal system. And they succeeded. They succeeded. That's what they have right now. They have the legal system. They have the Department of Professional Regulations. They have the governing system of the states. And their focus now, you see, their focus used to be on that of poverty-stricken working class people and families. They wanted to break up the family unity, which they had great success with during the welfare states with Lyndon B. Johnson and what have you, all the way from 1934 forward with FDR, and disenfranchising the black American families and dissolving them in exchange for welfare. The father had to be out of the home and what have you, how they trapped them in. And then progressively in the 50s and the 60s, the welfare spread to that of the poverty-stricken of the white families, and the same things happened there in the disenfranchisement. And then with the white families, they had to break them up. There was a strong unity within marriage. So we had the era with Hollywood's help of the Kramer versus Kramer area in the 70s, and then the divorce lawyers of the bar. Boy, I'll tell you, we had the biggest spike in divorce lawyers during the 70s after Kramer versus Kramer, because this was an intentional onslaught and planned out thing to break apart the American family and to demasculate the American man and totally devastate the American family's unity, to get many of the white now women and mothers on welfare and disenfranchised out of the working white man as well. Along now with at this point here where you're looking at, they have the black man had to be in hiding, and so did the white man now in relation to his family. And then they went into that of, like, everybody knows, everybody's a victim of this stuff. I'm pretty sure right now anybody who sees this remembers the onslaught with the child support, the insanity that we see happening with the legislation of this, and how it disenfranchised the fathers from the home, the ex-husbands from the home, and subjects them to pretty much imprison them and derail any pursuit of happiness they had in life. They were able to seize total control of all free men in this method. And as a man myself who had been through a divorce, and my first wife was a very young girl. Our divorce happened because we just simply were too young, didn't know what we were doing, and I was too immature. She was too immature. We got married very, very young, and it just dissolved. And she was able to be manipulated and played by the attorneys in the system to where it would cost me hell for 15 years of my life. I don't blame her, because I understand the truth of her naiveness and gullibleness, and as well she had a disdainful hate of me because I'm the one who wanted the divorce, and she never really wanted that. We had an attempt at reconciliation, which didn't work out. And she just never stopped hating me. And the more these people would be willing to do to me, the more in agreement she would be to anything to destroy my life. And that was the way they placated on many women during the period of using the divorce area. And right now, the manipulated system of family court, of which they do right now, like I say, all these things play into this, where it starts in 1878 with the Bar Administration, and how the legal system now and the court system now is being used as well to slowly decay that of the American man's independence, ability to work, his pursuit of happiness, the right to free trade, and the infringement right now that's going on among the rights of everybody is becoming more and more clear by the abuses that are stemmed out throughout all of our government. So with that said, I'll include links to all this so you can understand the long-established founders of the bar, the British Administration of Rules, which the attorneys want to lie and say, oh, that doesn't mean the British state. It does mean it. Don't lie. Stop lying. And if you're not lying, you don't think you're lying, you're an ignorant Democrat who just believes the truth over facts, because the facts made clear. It was the Tories out of Great Britain who founded the American Association of the Bar here in the United States. In 1887, this is a fact in New York City, that the members that came out of it are from the Baldwin family, who are a long-established and clearly established Tory family. And there's letters that have been founded that are in here that explain that their goal and intent was to do exactly what they're doing right now. Okay, so stop the lying and let's get to the facts. I'm sick of these paper-brained idiot attorneys and all want to talk, and historians as well, of what's now, which is about we're going to go into. We have this here now. I would like to touch on this. This is by USA Today. They're declining several times. I would like a live interview on national TV with the news, viewing this live for the public, with their historians on this article. But of course they're going to decline, because you know what? They know Now today, this is now off from the history. We're going to go into some of the things, but in a way it does play into the part of history, because all that we're talking about is how we got to where we are today. We see this story here from the USA Today. Fact check: Democratic Party did not found the KKK, did not start the Civil War. Now I want to review some of these things in this article because, like I say, I debate a lot with the youth and the posterity, and I try to get them straight. And these are the articles they send me. And when I see these articles, I realize this is a reputable name, USA Today. This is something that, you know, you can understand why the posterity youth would think, like, hey, Mr. Christensen, what the hell? You're telling me, and here, USA, really? Trying to say USA would lie to us? Yeah, I would. I tell you, it's a fact. They'll lie to you, and I'm about to prove it right now. So everyone who's read this article at the Democratic Posterity, we're about to debunk the lies and show you how USA Today, historians as well of USA Today, and that of the Democratic establishment behind this article are liars. Liars. And I'm going to prove it to you. Okay? The claim that the Democratic Party started the Civil War to preserve slavery and later the KKK. They say this is a lie. They're trying to say it was under what they normally do, economical reasons they did it, okay? But we're going to look at that, so just remember, they're trying to say that the preservation of slavery later, the Democratic Party started the Civil War and preserved slavery and later the KKK. They're saying that's not true. They say this is not true. You know, everybody knows Abraham Lincoln fought to free the slaves, created the Republican Party. This is not true neither. Abraham Lincoln didn't create the Republican Party. The Republican Party was founded by Thomas Jefferson, James Madison in 1792. I guess I gotta, well, this is in the other videos. You got links to that in the other videos. Watch my other videos. You'll see we already talk about the truth of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party founded. The Republican Party was founded in 1792 by James Madison and Thomas Jefferson in relation to that Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, which every American youth of our posterity should look up and understand that the Constitution only consents to a Republican form of government under Article 4, Section 4. The Constitution only authorizes a Republican form of government, not a democratic democracy. To understand the difference between a democratic democracy and a true republic, look up Federalist Letter Paper number 10, and it's pretty clear. Okay, so now they go on to say here, this guy says, I'm a conservative, but I find this argument pretty stupid because clearly that's not what they support anymore. Value changes over time. So this is user James Dubb wrote, historians agree that although factions of the Democratic Party did majority contribute to the Civil War, start the Klan founding, it is inaccurate to say that the party is responsible for either. They say, right? Okay. So now remember, they're trying to say the Democrats, you know, no, they were good people. They had nothing to do with slavery and not the Ku Klux Klan either. They try to make it out as if these were just things that happened during that time. Okay? This is not a new argument. Princeton University, Edward, professor, American historian, Tara Hunter, told USA Today that this trope is a fallback argument used to discredit current Democratic policies. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, because I put this out to them, they're declining this, but Tara Hunter, Edwards, University Edwards professor of American history, Tara Hunter, I challenge you to a debate with me about the facts of this history. Because you're a liar. You're a liar. Okay? At the core of the efforts to discredit the current Democratic Party is a refusal to accept the realignment of the party structure in the mid-1920th century, Hunt said. In September, NPR host Sharon Morrison Marjorie called the claim one of the most well-worn clapbacks in modern American politics. Boy, did they really draw the drama up. And I'm going to tell you what, I hope somebody's following along with me, and I hope you, because boy, the exposure of the lies to this at the end, well, my conclusion to show what liars and paper brain idiots proves my point with all these so-called paper brain idiots. I'm going to make them look like the fools they really are. Okay? Every time I go on to Facebook, I see these things. Did you know the Democrats are the real racist party? Did you know the Republicans freed the slave? No, a joke. A lot of people like to skip over the fact that when it comes to race relations, historically, Republicans and Democrats switch positions. Oh, this is a joke. So I want you to understand this guy here. I will challenge right here, Trevor Noah. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. Come debate me. Really. Let's have a live debate on national TV. I would love it. Because you know what? Everything is here. I don't have book text now. I have actual memory of fact or truth. I care about facts. And I'm going to show you some facts that are going to show you're a paper brain idiot, just like I say about all you idiot Democrats. Okay? Who started the KKK? That was Democrats. Who was the party of slavery? Who was the part of Jim Crow and segregation? Who opposed the civil rights movement? Who opposed voting rights? It was all Democrats, the meme reads. Others post making more specific claims about the Democratic Party starting the Civil War or founding the KKK continue to circulate. This trope was rated false by PolitiFact and Associated Press in October 2018. The faction of the Democratic Party started the Civil War. Opponents of slavery extended further into American founded, the Republican Party. They elected President Abraham Lincoln in 1860 in response to escalating tensions around slavery after the Kansas-Nebraska Bill of 1854 threatened the balance of slave states to free states. One, that's not true. The expansion and the development of new lands, the fight between that of the Tories at the time, Democrats, and that of the northern state districts of the Free Constitutional Republic of the United States, which was originally founded with its 13 colonies and established as that. Progressively, as new territories were added, they were added as non-slave territories or states, meaning that the constitutional United States of America abolishing slavery since 1777, starting with the first state, Vermont, okay, and continuing up. This is how we wound it up with a divided nation of the British Tory Democratic slave states and that of the constitutional free United States. The free states abolished slavery. During what he's speaking of here in the Kentucky relations of Abraham Lincoln in the Kansas-Nebraska bill or whatever, he's speaking about that where the Tory Democrats tried to fight for the right to expand slavery into newly developing areas, which did not succeed, which again led to that of the Civil War. Okay, the short answer is that Democratic parties did not start the Civil War, Hunter said. You're a liar, Hunter. I'll challenge you to this. The war was initiated by southern slave-holding states seceding from the United States. Those southern slave-holding states were under the control of the Democratic Tories, all of them. Okay, from the Revolutionary War forward, that was the original 13 colony establishment, there was a transition that had to take place all the way up to the point of what we have 1728, where the Democrats, or 1828, where the Democrats formed the Democratic Party. They went from being the British Tories to the Democrats. It was established as a pro-slavery party fighting for slave owners' rights and the right to expand slavery across newly developing areas of the Constitution of the United States of America. Okay, so get your facts straight. Congress did not designate the Confederate veterans as U.S. veterans. They didn't. They were traitors. They were traitors. This is a fact. We covered that with the Wade Davis bill. We covered that with that fact. And if had they not killed Lincoln, there wouldn't be a Democratic Party. Because Lincoln was going to dissolve the Democratic Party and revert it back to that of the Constitution only consents to a Republican form under the United States Constitution, Article 4, Section 4. Lincoln wanted it dissolved. It was by the assassination of Lincoln and the coward Andrew Johnson, who was a father of rhinos, who continued to allow and readmit the Democrats back in, and why we continued on after the Civil War to be a two-party system. It was never intended for America to be a two-party system. This is a lie. And the Democrats were the cause of the Civil War. They were the party of slavery. They were the party of terrorism in America. They were the enemies within, and they still are to this very day, and by the end of this, I'm going to prove it. Okay? The KKK was founded by Democrats, but not the party. The Ku Klux Klan was founded in 1866 by ex-Confederate soldiers Frank McCord, Richard Reed, John Lester, John Kennedy, J. Calvin Jones, and James Crow. This is true. This is true. That's where you get the James Crow, Jim Crow laws. You know, that's where they come from. And they were all Democrats. Matter of fact, the first Grand Wizard was a Democratic Confederate general. Buford, somebody, I can't remember off the top. But and then Nathan Buford Forrest. So it's right here. The first Grand Wizard was Nathan Buford Forrest, an ex-Confederate general and prominent slave trader. And he was a Democrat. He was a strong Democrat. They were all Democrats. Okay, so here, experts agree the KKK extracted many ex-Confederate soldiers and Southerners who opposed Reconstruction, most of whom were Democrats. All were Democrats. That's what you don't get. All of them were Democrats. The Tories were Democrats. That's what they were. It was a political party established for the actual intent of what they tried in 1861. They attempted to overthrow the Constitutional Free Republic of the United States of America after their alliance in aiding and assisting that of Great Britain in the Great War of 1812 failed. For the Second Revolutionary War, which the Star-Spangled Banner was written out of. Okay, by, if you remember, there was a war in 1812. It was the Second Revolutionary War, where the British came in and tried to overthrow the United States again. The Southern Tories, at the time they weren't the Democrats yet in 1812, but the Tories aided and assisted them in that attempt in 1812. That was the one that Francis Scott Key wrote our national anthem about, was the Second Revolutionary War. Okay, about, you know, the flag, that they couldn't take the flag down, and they kept ordering for us to drop the flag, but we wouldn't. And they lost the Second Revolutionary War. And then eventually the Tories were being hung and tarred and feathered, and there was constant civil uprising here in the United States with the Tories. And eventually in 1828, the Tories changed their name to the Democrats to disassociate themselves as the Tory. And they reverted their Tory society to that of a secret society under the law, under the establishment of the political party of the Democrats. That's a fact, undisputable fact, which history makes clear. And I'm going to show, and I'm going to prove that. The KKK, well, we just proved that with the Bar Association. You can see forward with the Bar and the Tory Association. Go look it up, okay? And then the KKK as well, it stems out of an ancient order of that of the Great Britain, with the Ku Klux Klan was not something just mythically founded here. It's of an ancient order that comes out of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, comes out of the order of the Great Britain with the Tories. Okay, the elitist scumbags, and believe it or not, the original founding of it, where it goes back almost 2,000 years ago, was founded as that of an atheist organization that just played on that of ideology and religions of communities as a way of infiltrating. That's another video, though. We'll get to that. That is more in relation to world history. But so here, anyway, a reconstitute early 20th century KKK extract members from both sides. Okay, this is what they claim, okay? After the Reconstruction and as the Jim Crow period set in during the 1870s, the Klan became obsolete. This is a freaking lie. The idiocy of these historians. This is shameful to even call yourself historians, really. You people are not historians. What you are is liars. Liars, and you're deceptive, and you're dangerous because the lies you're telling are misleading that of the American posterity, and I'm not going to have it. I'm not going to have it. I'm going to tell the truth, and you're going to face the truth. And I challenge any one of you paper-brained idiots to a debate on these facts, okay? If you dare so much as even want to come to that table. The idea that these things overlap in Van Doren's way that they did with the first Klan just isn't tight, the second Klan, Greenspan said. Oh my God, as we progress forward, what liars you people are. Okay, political parties which stance on racial progress. Okay, according to Greenspan, the Republican Party was much more concerned with protecting African Americans and their voting rights from its founding through the early 20th century. In the mid-20th century, both parties' stance on racial equality began to switch. This is a total lie. This is a lie, propagated lie by the Democrats that has been ongoing now since FDR, which I know, it starts with FDR and the New Deal. This is totally like, are you kidding me? FDR was the guy who, one, gave consent for the nation of the totalitarian Islamic known and long established declared enemies to come into America and build their first mosque in 1934. FDR as well was the guy who appointed Hugo Black, the first Ku Klux Klan member, to the Supreme Court. And you're trying to say, okay, but I'm glad you did say, because you know what? In the end, we're going to show what lying, ignorant fools the historians of the Democrats are in this propagated story of lies by USA Today, because that's what this is. And USA, in my opinion today, USA should be charged and sued for this right here, because this is aiding and assisting the enemies of the United States in a propagated lie that deceives the American posterity, which could lead to the downfall of this nation. And when you look at the issues right now going on in society, in the civil society of our public, as a result of this kind of propagated lies, the uprising of our youth right now, the seeking of them to look for socialism and totalitarianism in favor over that of our capitalist constitution and republic is disgraceful. And it's all being seeded by these kind of lies and this kind of idiocy from these kind of trusted institutions that today's posterity are relying on. And they're buying the lies that USA Today and other historians are putting out. And these people are disgraceful treasonous traitors that should be in jail for what they're doing for sedation. These are the people right here who are the sedationists against our nation with what they're doing. And they're doing it through propagated lies. We're going to prove this, though. I want everybody to pay close attention as this video goes forward. Fact, Southern Dems held 1964 Civil Rights Acts set filibuster records at 60 days. Okay, this is what. As the Democrats introduced policies to support voting rights, it became the favorite party for most black voters and has remained so since. With that realignment, many racist voters who opposed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 left the Democratic Party to become Republicans. This is a lie. Let me tell you right now, it's a lie, people. This is such a lie. All of this is so disgracefully a lie, it's ridiculous. So here, at the conclusion of USA Today and its paper-brain idiot historians, They claim that our rating is false. They want to say the Democratic Party didn't start the Civil War. Democratic Party didn't find the KKK. Democratic Party are the all-inclusive party for the black minorities of America. This is a lie, and I'm about to prove it now. So now we get to the conclusion of it. We're going to move forward. Now, as we know, the Ku Klux Klan was founded in 1866 by ex-Confederate soldiers and other Southern opposed to Reconstruction after the Civil War. In the waning years of Reconstruction, the Klan disbanded. Nearly 50 years later, in 1915, Colonel William Joseph Simons revived the Klan after seeing J.D. Griffin's film Birth of a Nation, which portrayed the Klansmen as great heroes. Okay, and this was true. And guess who showed that? Democratic President Woodrow Wilson in the White House. With the full and Democratic administration, and the Klan didn't disband. They went undercover, took off the robes, and were operating up until this point as that of the Knights labor unions. Okay, and they still were the other way too, because as we touched on the last one, you remember it was in 1887, you had the highest lynching of white Republicans took place in this nation by the Ku Klux Klan. So, I mean, I don't know where, and that took place all the way up until the 1900s, and right into the 1900s by the Ku Klux Klan. So, I mean, this is a blatant lie by these people. One, I would like to state that all Confederate members were Democrats. Okay, this is a fact. And as we progress forward, too, we have here Klan members of the United States politics. Now, this is something here we want to talk on. Right here is something, too, I want to speak on. Hugo Black, see? Hugo Black was a guy who was the first Ku Klux Klan member appointed to the Supreme Court by the Democratic administration. And this is in 1921, okay? So now he's in the Klan. So you're saying the Klan disbanded. Oh, it's gone. It's not gone. It never was gone. A matter of fact, this right here, where is it at that I had? Oh, the Quran. This was the rewritten, revised Quran that was certified by Woodrow Wilson in 1915. This was the same Quran that was just reorganized in a different. It was revised, but it's the same Quran from the 1965 or 1865 Klan. It's the same one that came over from the British Tory organization of the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, and it was just revised into English revision for them of the new revival of bringing the Klan from its secret society back out into an open public society under Woodrow Wilson, of which he waged war on the black communities across our nation, known as Red Summer, where tens of thousands of blacks were disenfranchised and killed by the Ku Klux Klan. And Woodrow Wilson, who was a Democratic staunch and he was a Klan wizard, refused to do anything to stop the Klan's reign, and there was tens of thousands of blacks murdered and thousands of white Republicans murdered who were trying to defend them during the span between 1914 forward to 1921. But we're going to even get into that history further, which is going to cover these things in very strong detail. But now I just want to get back to, real quick, we're just going to debunk things. Jefferson Davis was the president of the Democratic Party, selected for the Confederate slave states. This is a fact too. And the inconvenience truth here, I'm going to include this as covers the details of the facts going from 1854 forward with the Democratic Party and who they were. The essential Civil War curriculum of the Union of the Confederate politics of the Democrats. Okay, it was very clear and unquestionable that the Democrats were the ones who formed the Confederate slave states. And it was pretty clear that the British Tory pro-slavery parties of the British Tory were the ones who founded the Democratic Party in 1828. And it was clear that the Democratic Party in 1828 was founded as a pro-slavery party to defend the rights of slave owners and to fight for the right to expand slavery into the free states, and also to force the free states to return any runaway escaped slaves. That was the problem. Many states, the Democrat slaves were escaping from them and running through what we know, like you have what was known as the Underground Railroad for the slaves to escape up into the free states of the United States Constitutional Free Republic. And then the Democrats would try to get their slaves back, filing motions with the courts. But once they were in the free states, that's it. They were free. The Democratic Party was formed as a way of political establishment trying to enforce a court rule to return these slaves. And these were all things that were long instigated all the way, like I said, since the very beginning of the founding of this nation. We talked about in other videos and why the Tories became the majority slaveholders of what eventually became the Democrats, because they were managing all the farming plantations for the King George III during the Revolutionary War. Upon the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the British Tory, the British Loyalists, the traitors within, they claimed all those plantations they were managing for King George III as their own property to maintain control over those lands. And then they also claimed with that the slaves as their own property. So after the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Tories, who eventually became the Democrats in 1828, became the majority slaveholders in the nation. And they were right up until the very end of the Civil War in 1865. They were the majority. Matter of fact, when we get up into the 1850s, 1860s, in all honesty, sadly to say, history, it was never really a white and black issue. It was a humanity issue. The Tory Democrats were self-proclaimed elitist scumbags of monarchy, royalty, their blood's better than everybody kind of people, and they were the majority of slaveholders. But in truth, too, is realized there was a clear matchup. What most people don't know, many free blacks owned slaves, and by the 1850s, in proportionate to that of free blacks and whites, actually free blacks owned more black slaves than white people did, including that of the Democratic Tories. So, I mean, so that just exemplifies it was never really an issue of white and black. It was a humanity issue, because more blacks owned more black slaves than whites owned black slaves during the 1850s heading up to the Civil War. And this was one of the hard, staunch things that Republicans had to contend with, was the free blacks in the southern states who owned black slaves. I mean, how do you argue? You can't, you know, and it wasn't real, like I said. You couldn't argue the issue on white and black then, because how do you argue an issue with a black free man owning black slaves? Of which back in that time you had Ellison in the 1850s was one of the largest. He owned more black slaves than any white person in that time in the Americas. And he was a free black man. And how do you argue on a basis of white and black when you have the largest slaveholder is a free black man? You understand? It was never really about white and black. It was a humanity issue. And we'll understand and revisit back with Woodrow Wilson in the future as we get to that history, how it was him who propagated this North-South idea and tried to eliminate the Democrat-Republican ideology of the actual political basis of the war, of the Civil War. And he also is the guy who initiated the racism of white and black, because prior to Woodrow Wilson, it was never considered a war between white and black. It was never considered a civil issue between white and black. It was always an issue of political ideology, of that of the no-good racist scumbag Tory Democrats who were of self-proclaimed elitists who tried to overthrow the nation, and that of the true constitutional Republicans of the Free Republic of the United States of America. It was, and what it is still to this day, it was a constant interference of foreign interests of inhumane people of self-proclaimed scumbag elitists, of the totalitarian rulers and dictators of the world, which still exist to this very day. And that's a fact. Okay? Now, as we progress forward here, we look here real quick. I want to look at Jefferson Davis. He was the president of the Confederate slave states. You'll notice they proudly put here for his political party, Democrat. Okay? The entire administration of the Confederate establishment, of the political establishment of it, was Democrats. This is an unquestionable fact, undisputable fact. Okay, now as we move forward here, we have the declaration of causes to why the state succeeded. Now, in the article by USA Today, they try to claim that the causes were economical. They had nothing to do with slavery. That all the states succeeded because they were just having issues, and it wasn't over slavery, it wasn't over black or white issues. They were just, you know, they wanted independence for the states. This is what this article says. Where they speak in their article about this, and they debunk that, that they started the Civil War and that they started it over slavery and that it was Democrats. But as we see here, the Declaration of Causes, of which understand all of the Confederate slave states were under Democratic political establishment. Okay? It was that they were a Democratic administration. The president was a Democrat. Their Congress was a Democrat. And as well, the Democratic Party, which I didn't bring up. I'm going to have to bring this up because this is coming to mind right now. We're going to look at the Constitution of the Confederate slave states. Okay? Because we have this too, the Constitution right here. This is the Democratic Party's Constitution of the Confederate slave states. Okay, so the Constitution of the Confederate States, which was under Democratic administration, it's undeniable. They had their own constitution. Okay, they drafted their own constitution. They elected their own Democrat, their own Congress, their own House of Senate, of which was all under Democratic Party administration. To try and say it wasn't Democrats, anybody who says that, any historian who says that, is an ignorant, paper-brained idiot. Because the facts are clear and unquestionable. Even Jefferson Davis wrote his own book while he was in prison, until that scumbag, treasonous traitor Andrew Johnson pardoned him. He admits to these things under the Democratic order that they were attempting to overthrow the constitutional free republic of the United States to establish that of a democratic democracy state under their order with state rights. And their constitution as well makes this very clear and unquestionable. So I don't understand where these historians get their lies from. But now, I just want to go real briefly. They say that the Confederate slave states of the Democratic Party did not secede from the Union of anything related to slavery in that article by USA Today. They try and make it over political issues. Now let's just take a quick read here. This is from the letter of succession by Georgia. The people of Georgia, having dissolved their political connection with the government of the United States of America, present to their Confederates and the world the causes which lead to their separation. For the last 10 years, we have had numerous and serious causes of complaint against our non-slave holding Confederate states with reference to the subject of African slavery. Oh my God, within the first paragraph, they claim their causes to why they succeed. And it's over clearly slavery. Now, let's move on down, because we covered that real quick, right? And every one of them, it's within the first paragraph. Let's move down here. We got Mississippi. The declaration of immediate causes which induced the justified succession of the state of Mississippi from the federal union. Okay? In the momentous step which our state has taken of dissolve in connection with the government of which we so long formed a part, it is but just that we should declare the prominent reasons which have induced our course. Okay? Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery. Can you believe this? Can you? Yet in this article, by the lying, fact, historic, paper-brained idiots, they're trying to say that the Civil War and the succession of the Union States of the Confederate Democrats had nothing to do with slavery. But yet I'm showing you right here in the actual letters of Mississippi. I don't know if you guys can see this. I should zoom in, I guess. Let's see if we can zoom in on this and make it really clear. There we go. Make it nice and big so everybody can see that, right? All right. Our position is thoroughly... Okay, here we go. In a momentous step, which I just want to read this again, so we understand there's no misunderstanding with it. Within the first paragraph, right? In our momentous step, which our state has taken of dissolving its connection with the government, of which was so long formed as a part, it is but just that we should declare the prominent reason which have induced our course. So they're going to tell us now why they succeeded and why they're with the Democrats' Confederate states, okay? Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery. Do you see that? Here, let me highlight that for you, just so I make sure everybody sees this. Let's go. Slavery. Right there you go. You see where it is right here? Right here behind it. Confederate states with a reference to the subject of slavery. You see? Right here. Separate for the... Right, I mean, it's just amazing. This goes into Georgia. Right here, this is the Georgia one. And we look right here, all of this is all, we just outlined slavery and the reasons to causes to why in the letters of succeeding from the Union. Look at how much slavery is in all of them. All right, slavery. But, you know, hey, according to USA Today and their historians, it was not about slavery. Now we're going to go down here, we're going to get to Alabama or Mississippi. Right here, look. Right here in a momentous step, so you can see right here, our position is thoroughly identified in the institution of slavery. First paragraph, I mean, it's right there, very clear. Now we're going to move down here, and as you can see as we come through theirs, they mention slavery again. We're going to keep going here, we're going to keep going. This was in reference to, they didn't mention it in the beginning, South Carolina. They get to their causes a little bit late into it. Down here. The general government is a common agent, pass laws to carry into effect the stipulation of the states For many years, these laws were executed, but an increasing hostility on the part of the non-slaveholding states to the institution of slavery has led to a disregard of their obligation, and the laws of the general government have ceased to affect the object of the Constitution, meaning they rejected the United States Constitution over the issue of slavery. And we see that it's because of the anti-slavery Republicans of the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America. Okay, now we're going to move on, and you can see here they slavery. It's all they talk about, slavery. We get down to Texas now. Right here, you see, under guarantee of the federal Constitution, the Compact of Annex, that she should enjoy these blessings. She was received as a Commonwealth holding, maintaining, and protecting the institution known as Negro slavery. Again, this is in Texas. Within the first or second paragraph, they state their cause as being Negro slavery for their reason of succession. We're going to continue on now, and you can see as well, all throughout their cause of their letter, it mentions plenty of times in a reference to slavery. Virginia, believe it or not, was the only state that didn't mention slavery. But it does mention here, I believe Virginia is a slaveholding states, where it doesn't have slavery. But we go back and we just go to slavery right here, African slavery. Okay, that's in Georgia. Slave, I just want to go to slave, and then we're going to go, because slavery, mind you, in the letters of succession here, is mentioned 83 times. So I mean, they try to say it's not in relation to that. I want to get back down to Virginia. Let's go back down to Virginia, because I know Virginia talks about the slave-holding states as over Mississippi, South Carolina. Like I say, this is all pretty much random off my memory as I go with this. Texas, slavery. You see it all that yellow you see is mention of slavery. You see that, right? We're going to get down here. We're going to get to the Virginia. Okay, here we go. The people of Virginia and their ratification of the Constitution of the United States of America, adopted by them in convention in the 20th day of June in the year of our Lord, 1788, having declared that the powers granted under said Constitution were derived from the people of the United States and might be resumed wheresoever the same should be perverted to their injury and oppression, and the federal government having perverted said powers, not only to the injury of the people of Virginia, but to the oppression of the southern slaveholding states. So they state here the southern slaveholding states as their cause, that they're trying to deprive them of their right to slavery. So, I mean, this right here, I think pretty much I'll include a link to this. You can read all the Declaration of Causes of Succeeding from all the states and understand, usually within the first paragraph, or they do like you've seen with Virginia or South Carolina, they get to a point where like their main cause, and they write a book on slavery and how they're infringing on the right to slavery. There's a little fly flying there. And so, I mean, you can read them for yourself. So I'm pretty clear this debunks the fact that the Civil War was initiated by the Confederate slave states, and the reason for succeeding was clearly over slavery. Okay? They make that clear in their own letters of their declaration of causes of succeeding from the states. They make that very clear. As well, we're going to go back to the Constitution of the, right here. Here's the Constitution. Now, you got to search here for Negro in this right here. Oh, I don't want to do it there. I want to find it in here because I want you to understand too that the Democrats in the Confederate Constitution of the Democratic Party's Confederate slave states, they made it a constitutional right to own black people as slaves, and that black people who were born black, Negro black, were slaves. They were born slaves, and that there was a constitutional right that could not be infringed for the right to own them, and no one was allowed to free them or infringe the right to own them. It's a constitutional right in their Constitution. I just want to find this here and show you. Right here, and it is under. Right here is under. Go find that section. Section 7. Oh no, Section 9(1). It's Section 9. I'm sorry, Section 9(4). No bill of attainder ex post facto law, a law denying or impairing the right of property of Negro slaves shall be passed. Okay. Now they near tried to verbatim the United States Constitution in many of ways. They pretty much what do they call that? They plagiarized the Constitution, took what they felt was the best, and then they amended to it the parts they wanted. They also, in Section 9, the importation of Negroes of African race from any foreign country other than the slaveholding states or territories of the United States of America is hereby forbidden, and Congress will require pass such laws shall effectively prevent the same. So they wanted to capitalize on the market of slavery here and become an exporter of slaves. This was known fact too, and there's letters as well in Jefferson's own book and that of other investors with him, of where we want to know today, which I'm going to do as we progress forward in the future. I'm going to present the evidence to the facts of these things so everybody understands that the Democratic establishment of the Tory Democrats at the time with slavery, they had, and this was planned, this was not like in 1861 it happened. They established in 1828 the Democratic Party for the sole intent of overthrowing the United States Constitutional Republic of the United States. They had hoped to be able to attract in, to support them, Britain. But thanks to Cassius Marcellus Clay, who was an ambassador with Russia, and Russia informing Great Britain and France that if they would ally with the Confederate Democrats, that they would ally with the Patriot Americans of the Republic. And on that, France and Great Britain backed away, and had they not, we don't know where this war would have went. It would have got way worse. It would have turned into, I guess at that time, what would have been the establishment of a world war. But due to Russia's alliance with that of America, Great Britain had backed off from aiding and assisting the Democratic Party's Confederate slave states. So that they didn't do it, but they tried to. There was major investments made among the Democrats into that of slavery, though they say here that the territories of importation of slaves they were going to deny. They were still at the time bringing in slaves through Spain, at the time when Spain still owned Florida, and they were bringing the slaves through the ports there, even though it was banned in the United States for slaves to be imported here by the United States constitutional holding Republicans. They were still sneaking them in through the South. And the persons of main provider of the black African slaves to the American continent was the Islamic Muslims. And they have been long established allies with the Democratic Party because they were the primary provider of the black African slaves to the Democrats. During the time of the approach to the Civil War, when they had realized they were going to succeed, they wanted to succeed. There's no lying. There's letters between Jefferson Davis and as well Ellison, the black slave owner, other slave owners, and those of Great Britain, and then the Tories in Canada, where this was being pre-planned. We have a Federal Archive section that has the letters of transparency to why Lincoln charged all of them with treason, because it was known and established clearly with the investigation of the letters founding between that of when we took the evidence from the Confederate States out of Georgia, what we took from the Capitol in Georgia under Jefferson Davis. We had found out and realized how far widespread the alliance with the Democratic Confederation of Slave States was with Great Britain, that of the Muslims, that of France, and other slaveholding countries at the time, and investors. Jefferson Davis himself and many others had invested and already had contracts with the Islamic Muslims for large shiploads of black African slaves to be imported into America to expand slavery across the nation upon their victory should they had won the Civil War. So on that economical basis, yes, there was a great big amount of economical interest held by the Democrats who had invested already with deposits on that for large shiploads of what the Muslims were probably gathering, expecting them to win had Great Britain come in to aid them. We also know of evidence that exists within the Federal Archives that show where we had captured a Confederate state, Democratic Party's Confederate slave states ship out off the coast of the Barbary, and seized them and took them in as prisoners because they were being aided and assisted by the Islamic States, who were providing to them munitions, guns, gunpowder, and bullets, and what have you, for the war of the Civil War. The Muslims were aiding and assisting them in the Civil War. And they were busted out, and that ship was seized, and it was found out, too, because Great Britain was charged. It was found out that Great Britain had their shipbuilders build them that ship to be able to take to the Barbary Coast to get their munitions to take back to the States to fight in the Civil War with. So there was a lot of complicity of treason with foreign countries aiding and assisting the Democratic Party's Confederate slave states, of which obviously these historians of these idiots of the U.S., the USA Today don't even want to consider these facts of what I'm speaking about. But now, too, so we're going to get to the point now where we get to, at the very end here, they conclude out this Democratic Party switch, which we see right here. They're showing Martin Luther King with Lyndon B. Johnson. This is a freaking joke, people. Oh, my God. And at the end, you want to talk about an ignorant historian. Our facts check source, our ratings false. They claim that there was a party switch during Lyndon B. Johnson. And they're claiming that this party switch started, as we see right here, and I love this. I just love the ignorance of these stupid fools, these idiots. And I'm sorry I'm so aggressively calling them ignorant idiots, stupid fools, because that's what they are. And understand why I'm so aggravated with this, because of the danger. When you look and realize today how much of the youth of our American posterity is seeking and looking for a socialist communist state, how confounded the youth of our American nation is by this kind of propaganda, because this is what's being educated into their minds, into the disgraceful school system of these teachers who are just as disgraceful as these historians of USA Today and USA Today itself. What disgrace for such a so-called claimed reputable publication to be so ignorant to print such lies and fallacies, knowing that all of these people should be charged with aiding and assisting the enemies of the United States of America. And this publication should be greatly, greatly held accountable for what it's doing right now and the damage, when you think of how many millions of youth in this country have been misled by this article. And now we're about to show the facts of truth. They conclude this party switch during FDR, right, is where it started. And they concluded out finally upon that of Lyndon B. Johnson in the 1960s, right? So now we want to go here. This is Snoops. And right here it said, did LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, who they conclude is the final civil rights hero of the black minorities, say, I'll have those N-words voting Democrat for 200 years. Now, Snoops, because there's no actual transcript or record of it, it was by secondary hearsay of somebody who has witnessed him say this. They claim it can't be verified. So they say it's unproven. It's unproven because there's no evidence. But, just so you know, myself and many other truly conservative, true established Republicans under that of the Republican Party of James Madison, Thomas Jefferson during 1792, way before the Republican Party, the actual first and only consented to Republican Party of that of the Republican form of government that is allowed by the Constitution of the United States under Article 4, Section 4. Those of us who believe in those true conservative values of that Constitution that was established by our true founders, we insisted that Snoops include underneath everything that there is an actual transcript of that makes clear this man was a racist. Nowhere near, and not only was a racist, but there's one speech, one thing he is speaking to the entire Democratic administration about the urgency of importance of what they have to do in order to keep control of the black people in America and keep them fooled and idiots so that they can seize control of them. Which proves my point that FDR was not the party switch area, and Lyndon B. Johnson definitely wasn't. And matter of fact, at this point right here, where this is taking place in the 1960s, it is very clear that the true allies of the the true allies of the black American are the Republicans, and this is unquestionable. Matter of fact, it's so unquestionable, I'm going to prove to you that Lyndon B. Johnson himself makes it clear that the Republicans are the allies of the black Americans in 1965. Okay? And I'm going to make that clear by his own words, you see? Because right here is a thing that Barack Obama himself used this in a lecture, in a speech, in a conference he was doing, because it's a transcripted actual, and there's a recording in the Federal Archives of this whole thing, and it's transcribed to what he said. Now, I want to read what Lyndon B. Johnson is saying here. And I want you all to pay very attention. I've done this in other videos. And this right here totally debunks the fact that under FDR there was no party switch, and under Lyndon B. Johnson there was no party switch. And that all the way up until the time of 1965, it is unquestionable fact by the Democrats' admittance themselves within this right here that the Republicans are the allies of the black Americans in 1965, not the Democrats. And I'm going to prove that right here. Lyndon B. Johnson says, these Negroes, they're getting pretty uppity these days, and that's a problem for us. Since they've got something now they've never had before. The political pool to back up their uppiness. Now, we've got to do something about this. We've got to give them a little something. Just enough to quiet them down, not enough to make a difference. Now, pay close attention here. For if we don't move at all, then their allies will line up against us, and there'll be no way of stopping them. We'll lose the filibuster. There'll be no way of putting a brakes on all sorts of wild legislation. It'll be Reconstruction all over again. Now, I would like to go back to USA's facts here, where they talk about the filibuster in here. right here. Southern Democrats held up 1964 Civil Rights Act, set filibuster records at 60 days. You see that? Now, I want to go back to remind you of what he's saying here about they'll lose the filibuster. So you can understand in this statement here, they were not filibustering for the rights of blacks. They were filibustering for the control over blacks. And this statement makes that clear. You see? Because he said we'll lose the filibuster and there'll be no way of putting any brakes on all sorts of wild legislation. It will be Reconstruction all over again. So in his own statement in 1965, Lyndon B. Johnson is making clear that the filibuster action by the Democrats had nothing to do with alignment to be an ally to the black Americans, but was to take control of them, to give them a little something just to quiet them down, not enough to make a difference. His own words. Okay? Now, I would like to further explain to you here. Lyndon B. Johnson is a Democratic president of the Democratic administration. It is well known that he is also, which I haven't brought up, but I'll bring this up in a minute, he was a Ku Klux Klan member out of Texas. Okay, and the longest standing Ku Klux Klan member was Democrat Robert Byrd. Okay, of which will, you know, if you go back and review some of my past videos of Democrat Republican, you can see the details in that. I'm not going to go into the whole thing here. There's a whole video on that. But here I want to talk about another thing here. So now we look at Lyndon B. Johnson's own statement. These Negroes, they're getting pretty uppity these days, and that's a problem for us. Who is us? He's talking. He's the Democratic administrative president. He's a member of the Ku Klux Klan out of Texas. He's best friends with Robert Byrd, who is the longest standing Ku Klux Klan recruiter in the Democratic Party. But according to the USA Today's article, the Klan doesn't exist at this time. It's been dissolved. It's a thing of old, ancient. It doesn't exist. And we're going to prove that it does exist. Because we all know, as we go through, we're going to see here. Lyndon B. Johnson himself was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. It's been verified by the FBI records. And it's a fact that's in the federal archives right now. And I'll pull that up in a moment. And we'll show you that. But anyway, let's get back to what we're saying. Okay, since they've got something now they've never had before, the political pull to back up their uppiness. The reason they had the political pull was because it was the Republicans who initiated the Civil Rights Act. It was the Republicans who insisted on the right of equality for them to vote. And they were exercising that right in an alignment with the Republicans at that time. The Republicans were very staunch in getting under a Republican administration protection for them, like we know with the desegregation of the schools, Rosa Parks with the bus issues and things going on, that this was all supported by Republican administration who sent in the National Guard to enforce the ability for black Americans to enforce their civil liberties and rights. It wasn't Democrats who did that. It was the black American ability to demonstrate and exercise their rights were supported and protected by them by Republican administrations during these times, not the Democrats. The Democrats were the opposition to it. The Democrats were the ones who imposed the Jim Crow laws, were the ones who imposed segregation and separate but equal, were the ones who pushed for the separate but equal legislation. And this is a fact. And they were and still are the very Ku Klux Klan they established in 1865. But we're going to go forward and we're going to go here first to stay on subject here. Now we've got to do something about this. We've got to give them a little something. Just enough to quiet them down, not enough to make a difference. So it's pretty clear that the Democratic administration under Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965 had the intent to just give the black American enough to quiet them down, not enough to make a difference. Now, it's very important you pay attention to what he says now. For if we don't move at all, then their allies will line up against us, and there'll be no way of stopping them. Who do you think the allies are that he's speaking of? Who do you think the ally of the Negro American is in this time that he's speaking of? Who? If it ain't the Democrats, because he's the Democratic president speaking to the Democratic administration, of which the entire Democratic administration of 1965 is on board with him 100% in this, as you can see by all the other racist things that go on along with him and the Democratic administration down below. It's unquestionable fact, people, and it's all listed right here. You can go to Snoops and you can find all this stuff I'm telling you, or you can just research it on your own. This is an actual transcript of actual words of Lyndon B. Johnson himself, the so-called claim to be civil rights hero of the USA Today's article. These so-called historian paper brain idiots who try to claim that Lyndon B. Johnson or FDR was the party switch guy. This is such a joke. But like I say, so we're looking at this now. Who do you think, again, who is the ally? There's only one political establishment that could be the ally. And bingo, if you said Republican, bingo, you nailed it. So if in 1965 Lyndon B. Johnson himself, in his own words, is admitting that the Republicans are the allies of the black Americans, then how the hell is it possible that under FDR there was a party switch? How is it possible that right here under Lyndon B. Johnson himself, LBJ, there's a party switch when he himself is admitting that the ally to the Negro American is the Republicans, not the Democrats, because he's the president of the Democratic administration. It's his own words right here where he's expressing himself that they don't plan on making any change for them whatsoever. And not to mention, too, now let me pull this up. I'm going to, because I didn't have this up, it just come to mind. FBI records, LBJ, in the KKK. It's online right now, right here, National Archives. Let's see if this is it. Let's just see if that's it. Yeah, I think this might. Yep, here it is. We're going to look at the bottom here, if this is the right one. Right here. Ned Touchstone, editor of The Counselor, has been identified by a confidential informant. They give the number of it, as a member of the original Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Notice the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, remember the association of Knights labor unions? If you can tie two and two together, your brain is functioning and you got common sense. Okay. The source of advised in the December 1963 that Touchstone claimed that the Klan had documented proof that President Johnson was formerly a member of the Klan in Texas during the early days of his political career. So, as you understand, Lyndon B. Johnson, the so-called they're trying to tell you in this article here by USA Today and their idiot paper brain historians that Lyndon B. Johnson was a civil rights hero of 1965. Now, I think we pretty much, I think I make the point. I make the point, it's unquestionable. Lyndon B. Johnson was a Klan member. He was not a civil rights guy for the blacks. He makes it pretty clear he only wants enough change to quiet them down, not to make a difference. And the whole thing of what they were doing was going to forward FDR's welfare program to continue on with the democratic established ghettos of which they control all over the world, this country today. All the democratic poverty-stricken ghettos of the majority of the minority of black people exist under democratic control. So they succeeded with their plans here. They gave them just enough to quiet them down, clearly not enough to make the difference. They made it a lot worse. And as we progress forward in the history going forward from where we are right now in the history programs, people are going to be able to see unquestionably the fact that the Democratic platform with the Ku Klux Klan, its organization with the Ku Klux Klan, throughout its entire administration over the last 160 years, right to this very current day, has not changed one damn bit. Their goal is to destroy America, overthrow this nation, revert us back to a democratic democracy of totalitarian rule, and along with that of their allies, long established declared enemies of the United States, the totalitarian Islamic Muslims, probably again start up the black African slave trade, because you know black African slave trade right now is what we have in other videos. If you watch my other videos, you'll see in this current time in the Islamic states they are still trading in black African slaves and as well white Christian slaves. Slavery is still allowed there. It's not a white and black issue, it's a matter of inhumanity. And with totalitarian dictators in the world, that humanity still exists outside the borders of the United States. Right now the Democratic Party is working at bringing that back into the United States. They never gave up on the Civil War. They just took a break and they reorganized, and it still continues on forward, and it's still going on to this very day. And the threat is very realistic this very day that we could revert back to what we were prior to 1961 or 1861, before the Civil War, if the Democrats are actually able to seize control, of which with recent legislation, what they're doing right now to take control again of the elections, could wind up preventing ever again from a Republican being elected, which right now many people in the Congress are very concerned that the Republicans and what we see would happening. But I have a feeling very soon we're going to have a civil uprising in this nation that is going to correct these matters, because in honesty and all truth, within the entire establishment of the Democratic platform itself, of which is behind this, they have no chance of standing against a true American patriot Republican, and they're taking back of this republic and the control of our government, of which right now is so out of control, it's disgracefully shameful. But I would like to conclude with that, and I hope everybody enjoyed my video on this matter here. And if you did, comment below, give a thank you or whatever, or if you want to debate this, or I would ask too, let's all bombard USA Today and their historians to have an open live debate with me on TV. I would love to explain to the public on a national level, on national news and the TV, what liars you all are. But you keep refusing these offers. You just won't take them. And I get it. I'm an aggressive guy, and I'm an outspoken guy, and you may be a little timid. Don't be. I'll be nice about it. And maybe if you're really, because a lot of Democratic people on this platform who defend it are ignorant fools. They just don't even realize themselves that they're in denial. They can't face, like a lot of Republicans right now. like a lot of Republicans with Donald Trump right now, can't face the fact the man failed and walked away and handed us over to the criminal establishment. Granted, I say there's something bigger going on. I love Donald Trump. I supported that man religiously for 5 years. But obviously he failed. He's no Abraham Lincoln. He's definitely no George Washington. He's definitely no Marcellus Cassius Clay. The man handed over the nation, and I get it. He had a lot against it with Mike Pence, the treasonous traitor, who actually was the whole time probably on board with the Democrats in doing this. The guy's a traitor. And I said that since day one. But, Trump did fail. He failed. He failed greatly. He had the world's strongest military and the world's largest armed militia behind him. He did not have to let this happen, but he did. He walked away. Though he seems to have plans, he thinks, somewhere in the future, which I don't know how. If they were able to steal this election with the corruption now, and they're able to do what they're doing now, what makes these coward Republicans think they're going to be able to do something different with their little big words and their outspokenness, these bunch of ass-sitter attorneys who ain't doing nothing real whatsoever. They're going to argue their way into this. I'm going to yell at you. I'm going to write you a dirty letter. Freaking idiots. Disgraceful. I'm telling you anyway. But anyway, that's where I'm at with this, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, say so. If you want to comment, do so below. But that concludes our video for today. For a quick review, I just want to touch on the basis of that, of how the bar was established by the Democrats with that of Foreign British Tory Association, which shows all the way up to the point then of 1887 how the Tories are still playing a role within that ideology of the Democratic Party and its establishment, of attempted, of which they succeeded in, hijacking that of the legal system and turning it from an impartial separate party of government from all other branches into a fraternary between lawyers and judges under the fraternary of the bar, under the Democratic and British Tory control. That was my point I wanted to make for the video. And then also to conclude the fake lies of the article on out of USA Today's attempt to confound the American Posterity, which I think that article is criminal. I think these people in the article, so you understand what I'm talking about, we'll go back here and take a look. This is the USA Today article that is attempting to try to confound the American posterity to believe that the KKK had nothing to do with this, lying all the way around about everything in this, about the Republican and the Democrats and the truth of the Civil War and what have you. The historians in this are liars. USA Today is liars. It's disgraceful what they did in this article, and with the lies that they have, it shouldn't be allowed, and I think they should be charged, criminally charged. Because when you look at the damage, as I said, that's taking place across this nation right now, we have the American posterity crying out for socialism, communism, and that of foreign total totalitarian interests. Because of the indoctrination things of such like this with publications like this, who don't even care to take the truth into consideration. They blatantly just print up a propagated lie with deceptiveness that's unquestionable by the facts that this is all lies, by the facts of evidence that exists within the federal archives of much of the evidence of which I just showed you in relation to the facts of that of the Democrats' own words themselves, out of that of their own administration's mouths. It's a fact. Now, real quick though, I want to touch on something here. This is Ku Klux Klan members of the United States, right? Here they speak about You Go Black. This was in 1921. That article tries to say that shortly after the Civil War, the Ku Klux Klan kind of faded away, disappeared, didn't mean anything. But we're going to go down the list here. Here's Robert Byrd. Robert Byrd was the longest standing Ku Klux Klan member. He only just passed away in 2010, of which you had Hillary Clinton spoke highly of this guy as a mentor and hero of the Democratic Party in 2010 when he died. Joe Biden, the current president of the United States right now, referred to him as a leader. Go back and read, I'll include the link to the Quran here, about the addressing of the heads of the Ku Klux Klan. You'll get a real clear understanding of how Klan's member of lower rank have to refer to those of higher rank as leader. Also, too, in that speech in the inauguration thing of where he pays tribute to Robert Byrd, Joe Biden mentions about him being in second place, okay, and how Danny, the son of somebody, says to him, you could have been first place, or you were in second place, you could have, and he says, well, I still am in second place. And then he goes on to reference about how he referred to Robert Byrd. He never called him anything but leader. And understand by his position of second place and leader, when you read the Quran and the rankings, you kind of get a clear picture of what's going on here and realize that, yeah, Joe Biden was definitely in the Klan in Pennsylvania, and he was the second in command of Virginia's head guy, who was a grand wizard at this point, though they call him a grand recruiter. What do they call him? He was a Kliegel a Klan recruiter in his 20s and 30s. By the time of his death, he was a national wizard. He was a grand poobah, like, of the Klan. He was the shit guy. He was the main guy. So Joe Biden, from his long establishment, because there's pictures of Joe Biden all the way back. Lyndon B. Johnson, the Klan member out of Texas we just referred to, who USA Today claims is the party switch guy, the second guy to carry the torch for FDR, was best friends like a brother with him. There's recordings of Lyndon B. Johnson referring to him as a brother, calling him his best friend, and then telling how much he loves him and he enjoys the great work he was doing. In that time, Joe Biden was a younger guy, but as he grew up, he got to know Robert Byrd very closely, and he referred to Robert Byrd because Joe Biden would be one of the second longest-standing Klan members in the Democratic establishment of our government. So he was in second command. If you follow the eulogies that they're giving on him and the videos of him, just look up Joe Biden's eulogy to Robert Byrd and listen to the conversation. Go look up the rules of the Ku Klux Klan and the Quran I'm giving you, and the history of the Klan and their rules and establishment of order and the dressing of grand wizards, grand poobahs, and Klugels, or whatever all these stupid crazy names they have with their fraternaries that they have. But and you'll get the gist of what I'm trying to say. So again, we're going to head off with that, and I thank everybody for watching my video. If you watched it all the way to the end, thank you very much. If you got anything to comment on, comment below. Anybody wants to debate it, comment below. That's what they're there for. We're hoping to get debate going and recognize and share the truth. Share the video all you want. Make sure people are aware of this truth. Let's get it out there. And like I say, harass the news. Tell them to bring on this. I'm just a New York City kid. Didn't even start going to school till I was like 13. So what are you historians afraid of? Come on, bring it. Let's have a debate in public. I would love to have a debate in public. All of this that I'm doing right now is just off the top of my head. So I don't even need to have notes. I'll come out just like I am, right off the top of my head. All you paper brains, man, you guys could tear me up. Let's do it. Let's do it. I hope so. But then again, like I say, thanks all to watching my video, and I'll see you next time I make my next video. Have a great day.